My dad tore up my $50,000 scholarship in front of me and told me to be like my brother. I packed up and left that night. Yesterday, he called from his car crying because my brother stole everything from everything. My parents groomed me and my older brother David from the second we were born, but not in the way you're thinking. You see, they programmed David to think he was an untouchable superhuman. Meanwhile, I was nothing but a future baby carrier. When I won a $50,000 academic scholarship at 16, my dad tore it up right in front of me. I can't believe you even considered telling me about this. You should be pregnant by now, he said, lifting his fist as if he was about to hit me. He managed to stop himself, but it was still enough for me to feel uneasy. And that same week, they bought David a $50,000 BMW for his birthday. Image matters for men, Dad explained. When I started crying, he lifted his hand to slap me again. This time, he didn't stop himself. Stop being selfish. Your brother has a future. But compared to my mom's disturbing tradition, none of this was even that bad. It all started the day I turned 8 years old. Instead of waking up to gifts or a hug, she handed me a pregnancy stimulation suit filled with sand. I was forced to spend the entire day wearing it while watching birthing videos. She'd add weight if I complained, saying, "Real mothers don't whine." From there, I was forced to wear it every weekend. She even made me practice breastfeeding on dolls that cried if held wrong. While I spent every session plotting escape, she'd parade me around relatives who'd touch my fake belly and coo about my future babies. When I turned 14 and told her I wanted to be a doctor, not a mother, she made me wear the suit to school under my clothes as punishment. To remind you of your true purpose, she said. The janitor found me crying in the bathroom, trying to cut it off with scissors. He even offered to call CPS, but I declined because I knew my mom would only punish me more. Plus, I was lucky because my parents had been abusive for my entire childhood, which meant I'd been hiding money since I was 12. Babysitting cash, secret acrylic business, tutoring, the works. So by the time I turned 18, I had just over $8,000 stacked up in a shoebox under my bed. When I told them I was leaving for college, my mom locked me in my room for 2 days to think about what family means. When the 48 hours passed, my dad was the one to unlock the door. If you walk out that door for college, you're not welcome back. I left with my shoebox and a trash bag filled with my belongings. Meanwhile, David became everything they had dreamed of. A senior partner at a prestigious law firm, engaged to a Latina beauty, golf buddies with senators. They had so much faith in him that they retired early just to bask in his glory. And as for me, well, I was erased from family photos like Stalin's enemies, but I'd gaff LOL. Because just last year, I was promoted to director of engineering. 6 figures, company equity, team of 20. I almost called them to share the news. Then I remembered they didn't have my number, and I never saw my parents again. Until 8 months later, that is. I was fast asleep at 2 a.m. when I heard my old phone ringing in the drawer. It was my mom. She was crying so hard I could barely understand her. "Sophia, we need your help. David, he's gone." "What do you mean gone?" "He took everything. He was sick with stage 3 lymphoma. So we sold the house, cashed out retirement, everything for his treatment. But there was no cancer." He lied. I sat up in bed and stayed silent as she continued. "Yesterday, the bank called. Our accounts are empty. The house is gone. The cancer center doesn't exist. He's been in Dubai for 6 months." Dad took the phone. "We're in our car. We're 70 years old and sleeping in our car. The country club members want their donations back. They think we were in on it. Please, Sophia, you're all we have left." The next day, I met my parents at a Denny's. They looked like different people. Dad's golf tan faded to gray, Mom clutching a garbage bag of clothes. When I handed them my business card, director of engineering, Dad's hands shook. "You made it," he whispered. "Without us, despite us." I paid for a small apartment, 1-year lease, set them up with part-time work through my network. Basic survival, nothing more. Mom cried when she signed the lease. "We gave the wrong child everything." "No," I said. "You gave the right child nothing. And look what I built from it." When I got home the next day, there were 4 men in my living room. Turns out our parents' money wasn't enough for David because he was in debt too. More specifically, $10,000 of debt that was 2 months overdue. It was made very clear that my options were my well-being or handing over the money. So, under their supervision, I calmly took out $6,000 in cash and handed it over. I told them I could give them the rest tomorrow. But when they finally left, I felt a deep anger brewing in my stomach because I spent my entire childhood wishing someone would hit David into shape. But I never knew that that someone was going to be me. I grabbed my phone and texted David immediately. My fingers trembled as I typed the message that would start everything. The response came within seconds. 3 laughing emojis followed by a selfie of him lounging by an infinity pool, the Dubai skyline glittering behind him. My stomach churned when I noticed the Rolex on his wrist, Dad's retirement watch. I initiated a video call before I could stop myself. David answered on the second ring, his face filling my screen with that same smug expression from childhood. He was shirtless, tanned, relaxed. I stood in my ransacked apartment, still processing what had just happened. He spoke first, his voice dripping with fake concern. Then he laughed, a sound that transported me back to every childhood humiliation. The casual cruelty in his next words about Mom's jewelry made my blood run cold. I realized then that this wasn't opportunistic. This was planned. My doorbell camera app buzzed. I pulled up the footage while David rambled about family obligations. 4 men in dark clothing, faces partially visible, professional, organized, the kind of people you don't call the police about. A knock at my door made me jump. Through the peephole, I saw Miguel, my building's security guard. His concerned face told me he'd seen everything on the cameras. I ended the call with David and let Miguel in. Miguel shifted nervously, explaining he had the full footage but warning me about the type of people who'd visited. When he offered his cousin Rico's number, mentioning he used to run with similar crews, I understood the gravity of my situation. These weren't just any debt collectors. I stared at Rico's number on the scrap of paper. The collectors had mentioned interest doubling after 48 hours, $4,000 by tomorrow, or things would escalate. My savings could cover it, but that would leave me vulnerable. Miguel's cousin might buy me time to figure out David's game. The call with Rico revealed more than I expected. David owed $50,000 across multiple crews, playing them them against each other like chess pieces. My address was his insurance policy, his backup plan. Rico's matter-of-fact tone made it clear this was bigger than just $10,000. I drove to my parents' apartment at midnight, my mind racing. The building looked even more run down in the darkness. Inside, I found them sleeping on the floor of their living room. David's childhood bed dominated the space, his photos arranged like a shrine. They'd given up their own bed for his memory. Their laptop sat open on the kitchen counter. I scrolled through email after email from David, detailed cancer updates, treatment schedules, photos from supposed chemotherapy sessions. The timestamps caught my eye, sent during business hours in Dubai when he claimed to be too sick to work. The photos showed hotel rooms, not hospitals. Dad's voice startled me. He stood in the doorway, looking older than his 70 years. His words about David's Sunday calls and improving chemotherapy broke my heart. I turned the laptop screen toward him and pulled up David's Instagram on my phone. The jet skiing video was posted yesterday. Dad's hands began to shake as reality crashed down. Mom appeared moments later, her defensive walls already up. She accused me of jealousy, of faking evidence. 30 years of programming kicked in instantly. Even faced with proof, she couldn't accept that her golden child had betrayed them. The confrontation escalated quickly, old patterns emerging. I managed to screenshot one crucial photo before Mom grabbed my phone. David's hospital room selfie showed a Dubai license plate reflected in the window. Cross-referencing with his firm's directory confirmed what I suspected. His medical leave started the exact day the money transfers began. My phone buzzed with a text from Kesha, my best friend since college. David had contacted her on LinkedIn about an investment opportunity. My stomach dropped. He was expanding his net, targeting people connected to me. This wasn't just about the money anymore. Mom insisted on calling David immediately. I watched her transformation as his voice filled the room. She cooed and fussed while I pulled up his Instagram stories in real time. There he was, poolside cocktail in hand, while fake coughing for his mother. The cognitive dissonance was staggering. After she hung up, I noticed boxes stacked in the corner. My childhood belongings, things I'd left behind. Curious, I opened one and found my old diary. David had been through it, highlighting every mention of money I'd saved or hidden. His annotations in the margins called me selfish, greedy. My college scholarship essay was marked up with notes about abandonment. My phone rang constantly over the next hour. Patricia, my parents' friend from their golf club, other book club members. David had been busy, sending messages about my supposed mental breakdown. Each caller expressed concern, but I heard the doubt in their voices. He was poisoning the well. The next morning, my assistant pulled me aside at work. Someone had called about verifying my employment for a family emergency. The caller had implied I was unstable, possibly dangerous. My assistant, loyal after 3 years working together, had refused to provide information, but she was worried. My HR director, who'd known my family since I was young, called me to her office. She dismissed the concerns, but warned me that David was calling board members' wives during charity lunches. He was using our childhood stories, twisting them to paint me as a pathological liar. My professional reputation was under attack. I spent my lunch break at my parents' storage unit. David had left boxes there, supposedly containing his college memorabilia. Instead, I found a laptop with browsing history intact. 2 years of Dubai real estate searches, luxury car rentals, investment schemes. He'd been planning this since being passed over for managing partner. The real shot came in a folder marked practice run. David had created a fake investment fund targeting my parents' retirement community. $30,000 raised for guaranteed returns that never materialized. The HOA president had quietly refunded people to avoid scandal. My parents had invested half that amount. I drove to the retirement community and found Diane, the HOA bookkeeper who'd always been suspicious of David. She'd kept copies of everything, waiting for someone to ask. The receipts showed David's signature, his promises, his lies. She mentioned other residents who'd lost money to his emergency loans. The pattern was clear now. Every career setback triggered a new scam. Each con was more elaborate than the last, always protected by our parents' reputation. I mapped the timeline on my phone, seeing how his desperation had escalated to this final, devastating betrayal. A text from an unknown number turned out to be Carla, David's ex-fiancée. She'd seen my parents at the food bank and was concerned about the cancer story. When I explained there was no cancer, her response was immediate. She wanted to meet. Over coffee, Carla shared her story. $40,000 from her grandmother's inheritance had vanished during their engagement. David had convinced her she was crazy for questioning him, using the same gaslighting phrases he now used on our parents. The wedding was called off, but she'd never gotten her money back. That evening, Mom called in a panic. David claimed I was trying to steal his medical power of attorney. I recorded the call, catching him describing an experimental trial requiring $20,000 upfront. His voice was weak, pathetic. Mom was crying, begging me to stop interfering with his treatment. Dad's doubt finally surfaced during dinner at their apartment. He suggested they speak directly to David's doctors. Mom shut him down immediately, but I saw the crack in her armor. The seed of truth was planted, even if she wasn't ready to water it. David's escalation began that night. I woke to find my cousin messaging me frantically. David had contacted him claiming I was elder abusing our parents, using quotes from my childhood diary completely out of context. The manipulation was surgical. He'd twisted my teenage frustrations into evidence of lifelong resentment. I recognized the pattern immediately. When we were kids, David would break my toys, then convince our parents I'd done it myself for attention. Same playbook, just higher stakes now. The realization made my hands clench involuntarily. Kesha's developer brother called with disturbing news. He'd traced David's hospital IP address to a luxury Dubai VPN service. But more concerning was what else he found. David had been logging into my cloud storage, reading years of therapy notes. My stomach turned as I realized the depth of his invasion. I changed every password immediately, but the damage was done. David had already downloaded sessions where I'd discussed feeling guilty about succeeding despite my parents. He'd weaponized my vulnerability against me, using my own healing journey as ammunition. Creating an encrypted folder became my next priority. I documented everything meticulously, sharing access only with Kesha and Rico. Insurance against David's manipulation campaign. Every receipt, every screenshot, every piece of evidence backed up in triplicate. Rico called with updates from his connections. David owed 6 different crews across LA, had been giving each other's addresses as his own. My apartment was his safest option, the only address not already burned with other collectors. The web of his deception was staggering. Miguel became an unexpected ally. Over coffee in the building's break room, he mentioned his own brother had destroyed their family through gambling addiction. His eyes held understanding as he offered to keep the building's security footage secure. Sometimes blood didn't mean protection. Through my company's legal plan, I hired a private investigator. Within days, he uncovered something explosive. David's firm had conducted an internal investigation last year for client fund irregularities. They'd settled quietly to avoid scandal, but the damage was clear. Marcus, David's former assistant, agreed to meet me at the same Denny's where I'd reunited with my parents. He looked exhausted, defeated. David had blamed him for the missing funds, destroyed his career with false accusations. Marcus had kept everything. Emails, documents, recordings. He'd known this day would come. I adopted a careful strategy with my parents. Instead of attacking David directly, I expressed concern for his health. Mom noticed my maturity about the situation, her guard lowering slightly. Building credibility meant playing the long game. The collector's deadline loomed. 36 hours to decide whether to drain my savings protecting my parents or let David face consequences that might splash back on them. The weight of the decision pressed on my chest. Carla forwarded wedding vendor emails that made my blood boil. David had told them all her family would pay, then given my work address for the bills. I'd been receiving collection notices for months, dismissing them as mistakes. Another piece of his web revealed. During Sunday dinner at my parents' apartment, David video called from his hospital bed. I spotted Dubai News playing on a muted TV in his background, but my parents were too focused on his face to notice. The performance was flawless. Weak voice, pale makeup, the perfect suffering son. He made his move then, offering to forgive me for abandoning the family if I covered his debts. His manipulation was transparent to me now. When I refused, his mask slipped slightly. He mentioned the collectors had our parents' address too. The threat hung in the air. Kesha's husband, a nurse at Cedars-Sinai, spent an evening researching. No cancer center in LA matched David's descriptions. The treatment protocols he described were nonsensical. My parents began privately questioning things, though they wouldn't admit it aloud. Timeline analysis revealed the full scope of David's planning. He'd started 2 years ago, right after being passed over for managing partner. His cancer symptoms began that same week. Every detail orchestrated, every move calculated. I realized David's control had limits. It only extended to those who still believed his lies. Elderly relatives, distant friends, our parents' generation who didn't want to make trouble. Younger cousins were already questioning things in our family group chat. Marcus provided the firm's investigation file during our second meeting. The numbers were staggering. David had stolen $200,000 from client trust accounts. The firm had covered it to avoid scandal, but forced him out. His medical leave was actually a negotiated suspension. Kesha worked through the night creating an anonymous website documenting David's cons. Every piece of evidence organized, searchable, ready to launch if needed. Sometimes the truth needed a push, she explained, her fingers flying across the keyboard. We spent the night strategizing, our friendship deepening through shared purpose. Kesha reminded me that my parents had failed me, but I hadn't failed myself. The words settled something deep in my chest. Despite my rage, I refused to plant evidence or lie. I wouldn't become David to hit him. My focus remained on documenting truth meticulously, letting facts speak louder than manipulation. During our next video call, I calmly asked David about specific Dubai locations. He stumbled, claimed medical confusion from treatment. Then he accidentally named his hotel instead of the fictional hospital. I screenshot his panicked expression before he could end the call. Dad started checking bank statements secretly. His hands shook as he discovered charges from Dubai luxury stores during David's supposed chemotherapy weeks. He printed everything without telling Mom, hiding the papers in his dresser drawer. Diane, the HOA bookkeeper, took matters into her own hands. She quietly informed other retirement community residents about the investment fund scam. 2 more families came forward. David had borrowed for emergencies that never existed. His reputation crumbled without me saying a word. Mom overheard book club friends whispering about David at the community center. For the first time in my life, she didn't defend him. She sat silently through the entire gossip session, her face growing paler with each revelation. I mobilized my professional network. Colleagues offered my parents better jobs, real support, actual help. Everything David had promised but never delivered materialized through genuine connections. The contrast wasn't lost on them. David called demanding I stop spreading lies. I played the recording of him laughing about taking Mom's jewelry. The long silence before he hung up told me everything. He was rattled, his control slipping. My parents' neighbor mentioned seeing my kindness versus David's absence over the years. She'd always wondered why I stayed away but understood now. Her offer to testify if needed touched me more than I expected. David's options narrowed daily. Dubai's lifestyle costs were mounting. His income had stopped and no new marks were available. He started making desperate offers to return if everyone would just calm down. The panic in his messages was palpable. Carla's grandmother called with the final piece. She'd suspected David all along and hired a forensic accountant. He'd stolen from 3 other exes using similar patterns. The evidence was overwhelming, the pattern undeniable. I made sure my parents had food, support, and dignity while pursuing David. His crimes wouldn't make me cruel. I brought Mom her favorite tea during each visit, small gestures rebuilding what had been broken. Parents' former country club friends began reaching out, ashamed they'd believed David over evidence. They formed an unofficial support network, checking on my parents daily. The community David had poisoned was healing itself. David tried accessing our parents' accounts from Dubai, but I'd already helped them change everything. His attempted wire transfers all failed. The frustrated emails he sent them revealed his growing desperation. Mom found Dad Dad's hidden bank statements while cleaning. She broke down completely, clutching my childhood photo she'd kept hidden in her jewelry box. The tears were different this time. Grief for the son she'd lost, not the daughter she'd pushed away. My reputation as the good daughter spread through the community. Job offers for my parents multiplied. People offered genuine help, not the false promises David had made. The contrast was stark and undeniable. Complete financial forensics showed David had stolen $500,000 across all victims. Most was spent on his lifestyle. Luxury cars, high-end escorts, gambling. He had maybe $50,000 left if that. The money was gone. The collector's deadline arrived. Rico warned they'd escalate to my parents next. I had to act decisively. The weight of protecting them while letting David face consequences required careful balance. Mom admitted to Dad that she'd known something was wrong but couldn't face losing her golden child. They held each other in their tiny apartment, their marriage healing through shared pain. Watching them rebuild gave me unexpected hope. I realized I wasn't just saving them financially. I was freeing them from David's psychological prison they'd lived in for decades. Every truth revealed loosened his grip on their reality. When Mom broke down during my next visit, I comforted her without gloating. I explained that David was sick in a different way, that his betrayal wasn't her fault. It was the first time she'd properly hugged me since I was 8 years old. The extended family group chat exploded as evidence spread. Cousins shared their own David stories. Loans never repaid, lies about me, manipulations they'd noticed but never mentioned. The truth had been there all along, waiting to be acknowledged. Even David's law school friends admitted they'd always suspected something was off. They told me he'd talked about me like I was dead, made them think I'd done something terrible to be erased so completely. The revelation stung less than I expected. I negotiated with the main collector through Rico. David's debt would transfer fully to him. My parents would be clear. I provided David's Dubai contact information, his hotel details, his daily routines. The collector's satisfaction was evident in his voice. David attempted his last manipulation, threatening Sewer's lied if I didn't stop. I recognized the tactic from childhood, the same threat he'd used to get bigger birthday presents. I didn't take the bait, but documented the threat carefully. Kesha monitored David's social media. Hours after the Sewer's lied threat, he was posting from a yacht party about fake family trying to bring down success. The cognitive dissonance would have been funny if it weren't so pathetic. David's firm officially terminated him after I confidentially shared evidence with their legal department. His income stopped immediately, though his LinkedIn still claimed medical leave. The Dubai lifestyle was unsustainable now. My parents began therapy, their relationship with me slowly rebuilding on an honest foundation. For the first time in my life, we were relating as real people, not the roles they'd assigned us at birth. My team at work rallied around me, offering to create a victim fund for David's targets. My leadership through this crisis had only strengthened their respect. The irony wasn't lost on me. The child given nothing had built something real. All evidence compiled into a comprehensive package. 47 pages documenting every lie, every theft, every manipulation. The timeline alone was 12 pages, supported by receipts, screenshots, recordings. The truth was undeniable. Mom apologized for the first time in my life. She admitted she'd been so afraid of being a bad mother that she'd become a terrible one. She said I deserved better, that she'd spend whatever time she had left trying to make amends. The words I'd waited decades to hear felt surreal. Dad's admission came during our next meeting at their apartment. He acknowledged how he'd enabled David while crushing my dreams, his voice cracking as he promised to spend whatever time remained making amends. The weight of 30 years lifted slightly from my shoulders. The community's response accelerated. David's reputation crumbled as more stories emerged. Parents' friends who'd defended him for decades now crossed the street to avoid association. Natural consequences unfolded without my intervention. I discovered David had purchased fake cancer treatment receipts from the dark web. The complete medical fraud kit cost $500, the ultimate insult to our parents' life savings. I added this evidence to my growing documentation. Parents' former country club friends reached out with genuine apologies. They admitted their judgment about my leaving had been wrong. I accepted graciously while maintaining boundaries. Trust required more than words. David's desperation peaked. He returned to LA secretly, appearing at my parents' apartment still playing the cancer patient role. My parents didn't let him inside, though Mom wavered, seeing him thin from stress. His manipulation still had hooks in her heart. The confrontation escalated when David convinced two relatives I was controlling our parents' finances for inheritance. They demanded a welfare check, creating a scene at the apartment complex. The police found nothing concerning, but the damage to family relationships deepened. I handled the family drama alone while Kesha traveled for work. Every lesson about standing strong was tested. Despite the isolation and pressure, I maintained my course. David's tactics only strengthened my resolve. Making a crucial decision, I offered David $10,000 to disappear forever. It represented my remaining savings, but clean closure seemed worth the price. I knew he'd likely refuse or demand more, so I recorded our entire exchange. David took the money immediately, then demanded additional payments, revealing he never intended to honor any agreement. I'd anticipated this betrayal and captured everything. His greed would be his downfall. The family gathering at my aunt's house became the final battleground. David arrived playing victim while I arrived with evidence. Family members had to choose sides. The division was painful but necessary. David spun elaborate lies while I calmly presented receipts, screenshots, and recordings. Truth clashed with performance as relatives watched. Some clung to comfortable delusions, while others finally acknowledged reality. His final secret emerged through social media. David had married a wealthy woman in Dubai 6 months ago, running the same cancer scam on her family. Wedding photos surfaced on her Instagram, revealing another layer of deception. During the confrontation, his Dubai wife's brother called. They'd discovered David's lies and wanted him arrested. He offered to fly me out as a witness. The international scope of David's crimes became clear. I faced a choice between helping Dubai authorities arrest David or letting street justice from collectors handle him. Both options meant his destruction. Neither felt entirely right despite everything he'd done. Choosing a third option, I provided collectors with David's Dubai location, while warning his wife's family so they could protect themselves. Justice without becoming an executioner. David's own choices would determine his fate. David realized he was trapped between angry creditors and defrauded in-laws with nowhere to run. His confident mask finally dropped completely. The golden child persona crumbled as consequences closed in from all sides. His final manipulation attempt claimed I'd orchestrated everything from the beginning, that our parents' poverty was my fault for not helping sooner. The accusation fell flat. No one believed him anymore. Mom stood up during his tirade, her voice steady for the first time. She acknowledged failing us both, but noted only one child had become cruel. Dad added their enabling was finished. The finality in their voices was absolute. I secured victory through truth rather than revenge. David's own choices created his downfall. I never had to become him to hit him. The moral high ground felt better than any vengeance could have. David fled the family gathering with nowhere to go. His Dubai in-laws had frozen his accounts, collectors monitored airports, and family protection had evaporated. Every escape route he'd carefully maintained was gone. My parents signed the restraining order I'd prepared. David was officially barred from their lives, unable to manipulate them again. Legal protection supplemented their emotional boundaries. I helped my parents begin therapy sessions, watching our relationship rebuild on honest foundations. My tech connections secured Dad a spot in a coding bootcamp. His excitement about learning something new was infectious. News arrived within days. David had been arrested in Dubai for fraud against his wife's family. He'd served time there before facing consequences in LA. The cosmic justice felt appropriate. My sister-in-law stole the names of all my miscarried babies and used them for her kids, then poisoned my prenatal vitamins to cause another miscarriage. She actually thinks I'm not going to ruin her life right now. What's the sweetest revenge you've ever tasted? Raw-dogging my enemy's brother. For years I was infertile, but not just any infertile. I was the false hope infertile. You see, I had had 3 miscarriages, all in the second trimester. Luckily, everyone was really supportive, except for my sister-in-law, that is, because the first time I cried in her lap, she stroked my hair and told me she would always be there for me. She told me that when my niece, her baby, was born, I would be her godmother. I even started to consider her as one of my closest friends. Fast forward 2 weeks later to her baby shower. That's where she announced her baby's name. As soon as she said it, bile rose in my throat. It was Faye, the exact same name as my unborn daughter. Well, it's not like you were going to use it, was all she said when I confronted her, all while squealing like a pig being lit on fire. Her words felt like daggers. When my husband came over to ask what was going on, I told him. But instead of getting mad, he just laughed. Well, men can be pretty clueless sometimes. So I waited until we were in the car ride home to re-explain the situation. And my husband was the love of my life, but he was also passive due to growing up as the scapegoat of their family, the type to get robbed on the street and apologize for not having more money to give. That's just how she is, honey, he said with a sigh. So I told myself that at least my unborn daughter's name could live on in someone else's baby, and focused on increasing my fertility by being a healthy Pilates princess. But it never worked. A year and a half later, another baby died in my womb. A few weeks later, I was standing in an aisle of Walgreens when I saw it. My sister-in-law had made a post to commemorate her second son. The caption read, "Welcome baby James. Thanks to Emma, my name, for the name inspiration. Her loss is my gain." This was then followed by the pregnant emoji and the skull emoji. By the time she stole my third miscarriage's name, Charlotte, I was numb. She would send me nursery photos with captions like, "Bet you wish this could be for your Charlotte." My husband still defended her, saying I was being too sensitive about just names and photography. After 4 years of I stopped hoping for a child, Sarah was pregnant with her 4th child, and made jokes at family dinners about which name she should steal next. Everyone laughed. Everyone except me. That night, something in me snapped. If she wanted another name, I'd give her one she'd never forget. I waited until the next family gathering and broke down in tears. I told Sarah privately that I had discovered something incredible in my late mother's diary, a secret middle name she never told anyone, Lexativa. I said it meant sacred child in an ancient dialect. I even created fake diary pages and showed her a Pinterest board about honoring deceased grandparents through baby names. Sarah took the name and ran. She announced everywhere that she was naming her daughter Lexativa Rose to honor our family's hidden history, and this revenge plan was good enough for me. Until 8 months later, when the universe threw me a curveball. I was pregnant, like 3rd trimester pregnant. I almost cried with joy. No more memorials, no more wondering whether there was something deeply wrong with me. Me and my husband had been waiting to announce it, not wanting to get our hopes up, and that same week, we got the text. It was Sarah inviting us to her baby shower. I wore a flowy dress that hid everything. My husband supported my decision, not giving an F anymore. Sarah had gone all out for this shower, bigger than any before. The whole family was there, plus her mommy blog followers who'd been following baby Lexativa's journey for months. Sarah was in the middle of giving her speech about discovering this sacred family name when I stood up. "Actually, Sarah, I have something to share too," I said, smoothing my dress over my now obvious bump. The room went dead silent. Sarah's mouth hung open mid-sentence. My mother-in-law dropped her champagne glass. 29 weeks today, I announced, cradling my belly. We wanted to be sure this time. The room erupted in screams and congratulations. Sarah's face drained of color. That's when my husband, the saint of the family, stood up and raised his hand. "Sarah, you were saying something about Lexativa? About all that research you did?" Sarah's face had gone from white to red. "Yes, it means sacred child in ancient—" "That's so weird," he interrupted, pulling out his phone. "Because when I Google Lexativa, all I get are medical websites about constipation relief. I had to hold my nose just to stop myself from laughing. The rest of the room was silent. I grabbed my husband's hand and walked out. It was a proud moment for all three of us. But I was fast asleep at 4 a.m. when I felt a sharp pain in my stomach, one I had felt 3 times before. Me and my husband rushed to the hospital, but I already knew the truth. It was a miscarriage. Turns out one of my nighttime prenatal gummies had been swapped for something that was fatal to my baby. I instantly knew Sarah was behind it. I couldn't sleep for days after that. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Sarah's smug face at that baby shower. The police said they couldn't prove anything about the vitamins. The bottle had mysteriously disappeared from our bathroom, and the hospital couldn't detect what specific substance had caused the miscarriage. My husband finally stopped defending his sister. He sat on our bed, holding the empty vitamin bottle we'd found hidden in our trash can outside. His hands shook as he turned it over and over. Sarah had been in our house just 2 days before it happened, claiming she wanted to help organize the nursery. I started documenting everything. Every text, every social media post, every cruel comment Sarah had made over the years. My laptop became my constant companion as I pieced together a pattern I'd been too hurt to see before. 3 weeks after losing our baby, I discovered something that made my blood run cold. Sarah's best friend Catherine worked at the pharmacy where I filled all my prescriptions. I remembered seeing them giggling together at family gatherings, Catherine always asking intrusive questions about my fertility treatments. I drove to the pharmacy during Catherine's shift. She saw me coming and tried to duck into the back room, but I cornered her near the vitamin aisle. Her face went white when I mentioned the prenatal vitamins. "I don't know what you're talking about," she stammered, but her hands trembled as she straightened bottles on the shelf. That evening, Sarah posted on her mommy blog about toxic family members who make false accusations. Within hours, her followers were flooding my social media with hateful messages. My phone buzzed nonstop with notifications calling me jealous, delusional, attention-seeking. My husband deleted his social media accounts after his own sister's followers started attacking him too. We sat in our living room, curtains drawn, feeling like we were under siege. He kept apologizing for not believing me sooner, for all the years he'd let Sarah's behavior slide. The next family dinner was at Sarah's house. We almost didn't go, but my mother-in-law called my husband crying, begging us not to let this silly misunderstanding tear the family apart. Against my better judgment, we went. Sarah had strategically placed baby Lexativa's bassinet right in the center of the dining room. Every time I looked up from my plate, I saw that name embroidered on the blanket. Sarah kept making comments about how some people couldn't handle other people's happiness. During dinner, Sarah excused herself to feed the baby. Her laptop sat open on the kitchen counter, screen still glowing. I don't know what possessed me, but I found myself walking toward it, pretending to get more water. The browser was open to her email. My heart pounded as I saw subject lines about fertility herbs and natural miscarriage remedies. I quickly pulled out my phone, hands shaking as I took photo after photo of the screen. "What are you doing?" Sarah's voice cut through the air like a knife. I spun around, phone still in my hand. She lunged for it, but I pulled back. We struggled in her kitchen, her nails digging into my wrist as she tried to grab my phone. "Give it to me," she hissed, but I held tight. My husband heard the commotion and rushed in. For the first time in his life, he saw his sister's mask completely off. Her face was twisted with rage, nothing like the sweet persona she usually wore. "She's trying to steal my phone." Sarah quickly switched tactics, tears suddenly appearing. "She's gone crazy, just like I told you all." But my husband had already seen the scratches on my wrist, the wild look in his sister's eyes. He stepped between us, and for once, he didn't take her side. "We're leaving," he said quietly, taking my hand. Sarah's tears dried instantly. "Fine. Run away like always, but everyone's going to know the truth about her." We drove home in silence, my wrist throbbing where she'd scratched me. I showed my husband the photos I'd managed to take. His face grew paler with each image. The next morning, Sarah's mommy blog featured a long post about dealing with mentally unstable family members. She claimed I'd attacked her in her own home, that I'd been faking my pregnancies for attention all along. She even posted a photo of herself with a small bruise on her arm, though I'd never touched her. Her followers ate it up. Comments poured in about how strong she was, how terrible it must be to have such a toxic sister-in-law. Some even started a hashtag, Justice for Sarah. My mother-in-law called within hours. "You need to apologize," she said, not even asking for my side of the story. "This has gone too far. Sarah's considering filing a restraining order." "She poisoned my baby!" I couldn't help but shout. "Don't be ridiculous," my mother-in-law snapped. "Sarah would never do something like that. You're clearly having some kind of breakdown. Maybe you should get help." My husband took the phone from me. "Mom, you didn't see what happened. Sarah attacked Emma, not the other way around." "Oh, please," his mother scoffed. "You always take her side now. Sarah sent me the security footage from her kitchen. It clearly shows Emma snooping through her personal computer." My heart sank. Of course, Sarah had edited the footage to exclude our struggle, to make me look like the aggressor. My husband argued with his mother for a few more minutes before hanging up in frustration. Over the next few days, the situation escalated beyond anything I could have imagined. Sarah filed a report with Child Protective Services, claiming I was mentally unstable and shouldn't be allowed to adopt children. She'd discovered we'd started the adoption process months ago, before our last pregnancy. The social worker who came to our house was professional, but clearly influenced by the concerns that had been raised. Apparently, Sarah's mommy blog followers had been calling the adoption agency, sending emails about my dangerous behavior. "We've received over 50 complaints," the social worker explained, flipping through her folder. "While we have to investigate all claims, I want you to know that organized campaigns like this usually indicate someone has an agenda. We provided character references, medical records showing my mental health was fine, everything we could think of, but the damage was done. The adoption agency put our application on hold pending the investigation." I sobbed in my husband's arms that night. Sarah hadn't just stolen my baby's names, she was trying to steal any chance chance I had at motherhood. The next morning brought fresh hell. Sarah had posted screenshots of my snooping on her laptop, conveniently cropping out everything that showed her research into miscarriage-inducing herbs. Her followers were calling me a criminal, demanding I be arrested for invasion of privacy. My husband and I sat at our kitchen table, surrounded by printed emails from the adoption agency. Each one detailed another concerned citizen who'd contacted them about my supposed mental instability. The language was eerily similar across dozens of messages, clearly coordinated. Catherine called me that afternoon. Her voice shook as she whispered into the phone. "Meet me at the park on Elm Street. Come alone. I need to tell you something." My husband wanted to come with me, but I knew Catherine would bolt if she saw him. I found her sitting on a bench near the playground, nervously watching mothers push their children on swings. "I can't do this anymore," she said as soon as I sat down. "Sarah's gone too far. The vitamins, she made me switch them. Said it was just harmless herbs to help with your anxiety." My hands clenched into fists. You knew what they were. Catherine's eyes filled with tears. She had dirt on me. I've been skimming pills from the pharmacy, just anxiety meds for myself, nothing serious. But she found out somehow and threatened to report me unless I helped her. I pulled out my phone to record, but Catherine grabbed my wrist. "No recordings. I'll deny everything if you try to use this against me. I wanted you to know I'm sorry, and to warn you, she's not done." "What do you mean she's not done?" Catherine glanced around nervously. "She's been stealing your mail, has copies of all your adoption paperwork. She knows which agency you're using, who your caseworker is, everything." My blood ran cold. We'd been wondering why some of our mail seemed to go missing. Catherine stood to leave, but I grabbed her arm. "You have to tell someone. The police, the adoption agency, anyone." She yanked away from me. "I can't lose my job. I have kids too." She hurried away, leaving me alone on the bench. That evening, my husband installed security cameras around our house. We changed all our locks and had our mail forwarded to a post office box. It felt like we were preparing for war. Sarah's next move came at Thanksgiving dinner. The whole family gathered at my mother-in-law's house, tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Sarah arrived late, making a grand entrance with all 4 of her children dressed in matching outfits. During dinner, she kept making pointed comments about people who can't let go of the past and the importance of mental health treatment. My husband's jaw clenched tighter with each jab, but he stayed silent. Then, as we were clearing dessert plates, Sarah stood up and clinked her wine glass. "I have an announcement." The room fell silent. Sarah's hand moved to her stomach in that familiar gesture I'd made so many times before. "We're expecting again, and I've already chosen the perfect name." My mother-in-law gasped with delight. "Oh, Sarah, how wonderful." "Yes," Sarah continued, her eyes locked on mine. "If it's a girl, we're naming her Margaret, after Emma's dear departed mother." The room spun. My mother had died just 6 months ago, her name the last sacred thing I had left. I stood so quickly my chair toppled backward. "You wouldn't dare," I whispered. Sarah's smile was pure venom. "Why not? It's such a beautiful name, and someone should use it since you clearly can't." My husband was on his feet now too. "That's enough, Sarah. You've crossed every line." "Have I?" Sarah's voice rose to a shriek. "She's the one who broke into my computer. She's the one spreading lies about me. I'm just trying to honor family traditions. By stealing the names of dead babies?" My husband's voice was deadly quiet. The room erupted. My father-in-law started shouting about keeping the peace. Sarah's husband looked confused, asking what was really going on. The children started crying. In the chaos, Sarah grabbed her phone and started live streaming to her mommy blog followers. "You can see how I'm being attacked in my own family," she said to the camera. "All because I want to honor my sister-in-law's mother." My husband grabbed my hand. "We're leaving." As we headed for the door, Sarah called out, "Oh, Emma, you might want to check with the adoption agency. I heard they received some very interesting information about your mental health history." We drove home in silence, both of us too angry to speak. When we got home, there was a message on our answering machine from our adoption caseworker, asking us to call urgently. My hands shook as I dialed the number. The caseworker's voice was carefully neutral as she explained that they'd received documentation, suggesting I'd been hospitalized for psychiatric issues multiple times. "That's not true," I said, my voice breaking. "I've never been hospitalized for anything except my miscarriages." "I understand," she said, "but we need to investigate these claims. Can you provide your complete medical history?" After I hung up, my husband found me sobbing on our bedroom floor. He held me as I cried, whispering promises that we'd fight this, that Sarah wouldn't win. The next day, we went to the hospital to request my medical records. The administrator pulled up my file, then frowned. "This is strange. There are entries here I don't recognize." My heart sank as she showed us the screen. Someone had added fake psychiatric admissions to my electronic records, complete with diagnoses of delusional disorder and pathological lying. "This is fraud," the administrator said. "We'll need to investigate how someone accessed our system." It took 2 weeks to get the fake entries removed and documented as fraudulent. During that time, Sarah escalated her campaign. She created fake social media accounts in my name, posting unhinged rants about wanting to steal other people's babies. She sent anonymous tips to my employer about my mental instability. My husband started recording everything. He bought a small camera he wore on his shirt, documenting every interaction with his family. His mother called him paranoid, but he didn't care anymore. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Sarah's eldest daughter, Faye, now 8 years old, called our house one evening when her parents were out. "Aunt Emma," her small voice said, "I need to tell you something. Mommy makes us lie about you." My husband quickly started recording as Faye explained how her mother made her and her siblings tell people I was mean to them, that I scared them, that I said bad things about their family. "She practices with us," Faye said, "makes us repeat the lies until we say them right. I don't want to anymore. You've never been mean to us." We saved the recording, adding it to our growing pile of evidence. But Sarah must have found out about Faye's call, because the next day she posted about how I was manipulating innocent children and turning them against their mother. Her followers were rabid, sending death threats to my social media accounts. Someone posted my work address, and protesters showed up at my office with signs calling me a baby killer and child predator. My boss called me into his office. "I know this is personal," he said, "but it's affecting the company. Maybe you should take some time off until this blows over." I was effectively suspended from my job. Sarah had managed to destroy my reputation, my career prospects, and my chance at adoption, but she wasn't satisfied yet. 2 weeks later, my husband's grandmother celebrated her 90th birthday. We debated not going, but his grandmother had always been kind to me, and I didn't want to disappoint her. The party was at a restaurant, neutral ground we thought would be safe. Sarah arrived late, as usual, making sure all eyes were on her. She air-kissed relatives and gushed about her pregnancy, now showing prominently. During the cake cutting, I excused myself to use the restroom. Sarah followed me in, checking the stalls to make sure we were alone before turning to face me. "You should just give up," she said conversationally, applying lipstick in the mirror. "You're never going to be a mother. The adoption agency has already rejected your application." "Oh, didn't you know? I have a friend who works there." I stayed silent, remembering my husband's camera was recording everything. Sarah continued, mistaking my silence for defeat. "It was so easy, really. Catherine at the pharmacy, my friend at the hospital who helped with your medical records, the social worker who owed me a favor. You never stood a chance." "Why?" I finally asked. "What did I ever do to you?" Sarah's reflection smiled at me. "You married him. You took my brother away from me. He was supposed to always put me first, and then you came along with your fertility sob story, and suddenly he cared more about you than me. So you unalived my babies?" Sarah laughed. "I didn't unalive anything. You did that all on your own. I just helped nature along with the last one. Consider it a favor. You're clearly not meant to be a mother." I left the bathroom without another word, my heart pounding. We finally had her confession on tape, but when my husband checked the camera that night, the battery had mysteriously died just before Sarah followed me into the bathroom. We had nothing. The next blow came from Sarah's husband, who called my husband asking to meet privately. We assumed he was going to threaten us, but instead, he looked exhausted and defeated. "I found her journal," he said, sliding a leather notebook across the table. "I wasn't snooping. It fell out of her purse. I think you need to see this." The journal was Sarah's, and it was damning. Page after page detailed her plans to destroy me, her glee at each miscarriage, her coordination with Catherine and others to sabotage my life. But most disturbing were the entries about other family members she'd targeted over the years. She'd poisoned her mother-in-law's cat because the woman had suggested she wait to have children. She'd sabotaged her cousin's wedding by sleeping with the groom. She'd gotten her college roommate expelled by planting substances in her dorm room. "I don't know who I married," Sarah's husband said, his voice broken. "The kids. I'm filing for divorce. I'll testify about what I found if you need me to." We photocopied every page of the journal before returning it. Finally, we had real evidence. But Sarah struck first. The next morning, police showed up at our door with a warrant. Someone had reported that we were dealing substances, and they needed to search our house. My husband and I stood in our living room, watching officers tear apart our carefully rebuilt life. They found nothing, of course, but the damage was done. Our neighbors watched from their windows as police cars lined our street. After the police left, we found a note tucked under our doormat. Sarah's handwriting: "Stop now, or next time they'll find something." That night, my husband and I made a decision. We would take everything we had to the family, force them to see the truth about Sarah once and for all. We called a family meeting at my mother-in-law's house, saying we had important news to share. Sarah arrived looking smug, probably thinking we were going to announce our surrender. Instead, my husband connected his laptop to the TV and began presenting our evidence. The journal entries, the photos from Sarah's computer, the testimony from her husband, even Faye's recorded confession about being forced to lie. The room was silent as the evidence mounted. Sarah's face went from smug to panicked to furious. When we showed the journal entry about her poisoning the cat, my mother-in-law gasped. "Whiskers didn't just die," she whispered. Sarah jumped to her feet. "This is all fake. They're trying to frame me because they're jealous of my perfect family." But her husband stood up too. "It's true. All of it. I've seen the original journal. Sarah, you need help." The dam broke. Other family members started sharing their own stories about Sarah's cruelty over the years. Her pattern of behavior became undeniable. Sarah's mask finally shattered completely. She screamed at everyone, calling them liars and traitors. She grabbed a vase and threw it at the wall, sending shattered glass across the room. "You want to destroy me?" she shrieked at me. "You barren witch. You'll never have what I have. Never." Her eldest son, James, started crying. "Mom, stop. You're scaring us." But Sarah was beyond reason. She lunged at me, and this time I didn't back down. My husband and hers had to pull us apart as she clawed at my face, screaming obscenities. "I should have used something stronger in those vitamins," she screamed. "I should have made sure you could never even try again." The room went completely still. Even Sarah seemed to realize what she'd just admitted. My father-in-law's voice was cold. "Get out of my house. Don't come back." Sarah looked around the room at her family, her children, her husband. All of them were looking at her with horror and disgust. "Fine," she spat, "but I'm taking my children." "No," her husband said firmly. "You're not. Kids, come here." All 4 children ran to their father, even baby Lexativa in Faye's arms. Sarah stood alone in the center of the room, finally seeing the consequences of her actions. She left without another word, slamming the door behind her. The family sat in stunned silence for a moment before my mother-in-law started crying. "I'm so sorry," she sobbed, reaching for my hand. "I should have believed you. All those babies. I'm so sorry." The aftermath was swift. Catherine, terrified of losing her pharmacy license, came forward with a full confession about switching my vitamins. She provided receipts, text messages from Sarah, everything needed to prove what had happened. Sarah's husband filed for emergency custody and a restraining order. The divorce papers cited her journal as evidence of her being an unfit mother. He also shared that he'd found searches on her computer for "how to induce abuse miscarriage dating back years. Sarah's mommy blog imploded when someone leaked excerpts from her journal to her followers. The woman who'd built her brand on being the perfect mother was exposed as a calculating sociopath who'd poisoned family members and sabotaged pregnancies. Within days, she lost everything: her husband, her children, her family, her online following. The adoption agency called to apologize and reactivate our application, noting that the fraudulent complaints would actually strengthen our case by showing we could handle adversity. 3 months later, my husband and I stood in a courthouse, finalizing the adoption of newborn twins. We named them Charlotte and James, reclaiming the name Sarah had stolen. As we signed the papers, I thought about the long journey that had brought us here. Sarah was facing criminal charges for the vitamin tampering, though her lawyer was pushing for a plea deal involving mental health treatment instead of jail time. Her children were thriving with their father, finally free from their mother's toxic influence. Faye had started calling me Aunt Emma again, and she'd asked if she could help babysit the twins when they were older. "I want to be a good big cousin," she'd said, "not like my mom was a sister." As we drove home with our babies, my husband reached over and squeezed my hand. We'd survived Sarah's campaign of terror, and somehow we'd come out stronger. The twins gurgled in their car seats, and I smiled through my tears. Sarah had tried to steal everything from me, but in the end, she'd only stolen from herself. I had my family, my babies, my life back. And Sarah? She had exactly what she'd always given others: nothing but the consequences of her own cruelty. The courthouse adoption ceremony ended at noon. By 12:30, Sarah was already causing problems. My husband spotted her first, standing across the street from the courthouse steps where we were taking photos with Charlotte and James. She wore oversized sunglasses and a baseball cap, but her rigid posture gave her away. "Don't look," he whispered, shifting to block her view of the twins. The photographer noticed our tension and suggested we move to the courthouse garden. As we walked away, I heard rapid footsteps behind us. Sarah had crossed the street. "Those should have been my names to give," she called out. Security intercepted her before she got close. We watched them escort her away while she shouted about her rights as an aunt. The twins slept through it all, unaware of the drama surrounding their first official day as ours. That afternoon, we discovered Sarah had been busier than we thought. Our adoption announcement on social media, posted by my mother-in-law with our permission, had been screenshot and reposted on Sarah's new blog with commentary about baby thieves and name stealers. Catherine texted me a warning. Sarah had been at the pharmacy that morning, asking strange questions about infant medications and allergies. Catherine had refused to give her any information and alerted her manager, but the encounter left everyone uneasy. We installed a doorbell camera that evening. My husband also changed our pediatrician to one across town, just to be safe. The twins needed their first checkup next week, and we weren't taking chances. Sarah's husband called the next day with disturbing news. She'd broken into his house while the kids were at school, taking photo albums and baby clothes. She'd also left a note demanding visitation with her children. "The restraining order covers the kids too," he assured us. "But she's getting desperate. She's been staying with different friends, telling them you've all turned against her for no reason." 3 days later, Sarah showed up at my husband's workplace. She'd waited in the parking garage, approaching him as he walked to his car. My husband immediately started recording on his phone. "You poisoned everyone against me," she said, blocking his path. "Even my own children won't talk to me." My husband tried to step around her, but she moved with him. "Sarah, you need to leave. You're violating the restraining order. That piece of paper means nothing. You're my brother. You're supposed to protect me, not destroy me. You destroyed yourself," he said quietly. Sarah's face contorted. She grabbed his phone and threw it against the concrete wall. It shattered on impact. Then she ran to her car and sped away before security arrived. The broken phone meant we lost that recording, but the parking garage cameras caught everything. My husband filed a police report, and a warrant was issued for Sarah's arrest. She evaded police for a week. During that time, she created dozens of fake social media profiles, flooding our accounts and our employers' pages with accusations. She claimed we'd stolen her children, ruined her marriage, and planted evidence against her. One profile particularly stood out. It used photos of Charlotte and James from the courthouse, edited to include Sarah holding them. The captions claimed they were her twins that we'd kidnapped. Several of her old blog followers, still loyal despite everything, shared the posts. My boss called me back into his office. "I know this isn't your fault," he said, sliding a printed screenshot across his desk. "But HR is concerned. These accusations of kidnapping, even though they're false, they're affecting our workplace." I stared at the fabricated photo of Sarah with our twins. "What are you saying?" "Take extended leave. Paid. Let this situation resolve, then we'll reassess." I cleaned out my desk that afternoon, trying not to cry. Sarah had now cost me my active employment along with everything else. That night, Faye called again. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Aunt Emma, Mom's here. She's outside Dad's house. She keeps texting me to let her in." My husband immediately called his brother-in-law while I stayed on with Faye. We could hear Sarah pounding on the door, shouting for her children. "She says she has new vitamins for the baby," Faye whispered. "Special ones to make her smart like her." My blood ran cold. "Faye, don't open that door. Stay away from the windows." Police arrived within minutes. We listened over the phone as they arrested Sarah. She screamed the entire time about her rights as a mother, how we'd all conspired against her, how she just wanted to give her baby vitamins. They found a bottle of unmarked pills in her purse. Sarah spent 2 nights in jail before making bail. Her lawyer argued she was having a mental health crisis and needed treatment, not incarceration. The judge agreed to bail with conditions. She had to wear an ankle monitor and stay away from all family members. The pills tested positive for a mild sedative, nothing immediately dangerous but completely inappropriate for an infant. It was enough to add attempted child endangerment to her charges. Sarah's former friends began distancing themselves as more truth emerged. One of them, a woman named Patricia who'd been housing Sarah, called me directly. "I'm sorry," Patricia said. "I believed her story stories about you. But then I caught her in my medicine cabinet at 3 a.m., going through my prescriptions. When I confronted her, she said she was just looking for aspirin, but you don't believe her, I finished. No, and there's more. She's been using my computer to create those fake profiles. I have screenshots of everything. Patricia emailed us dozens of screenshots showing Sarah's activity, creating fake accounts, editing photos, coordinating harassment campaigns. It was all there, time-stamped and undeniable. We added it to our evidence file, which had grown thick enough to fill a banker's box. My husband organized everything chronologically, preparing for the criminal trial. Meanwhile, we focused on our new life with the twins. They were thriving, gaining weight, and starting to smile. Charlotte had my husband's eyes, while James had my stubborn chin. Every milestone felt like a victory Sarah couldn't steal. The adoption agency called with a follow-up visit. The social worker who came was the same one who'd investigated Sarah's false claims. She smiled when she saw how well the twins were doing. I want to apologize again for the investigation, she said, watching Charlotte grip my finger. It's clear now that those complaints were malicious. We understand you had to follow protocol, my husband said. Yes, but I want you to know we flagged Sarah's name in our system. If she ever tries to adopt or interfere with another adoption, we'll know immediately. It was a small comfort, but we'd take any protection we could get. Sarah's next move came through her lawyer. She was suing for grandparent rights, claiming we were alienating her from her rightful relationship with the twins. The lawsuit was baseless. She wasn't their biological grandmother and had no standing, but we still had to respond. Our lawyer laughed when he read the filing. She's grasping at straws. No judge will even hear this case. He was right. The lawsuit was dismissed within a week, but Sarah didn't stop there. She started showing up at places she knew we'd be. The grocery store, the park, the pediatrician's office, always staying just far enough away to not violate the restraining order's distance requirement, but close enough to make her presence known. One afternoon at the park, she sat on a bench 50 feet away, staring at us the entire time. Other parents noticed and moved their children away from her. When a concerned mother asked if we knew her, I simply said she was someone we had a restraining order against. Word spread quickly through the playground. Sarah must have realized her tactics weren't working because she changed approach. She started sending letters to our house through her lawyer, claiming she wanted to reconcile. Each letter contained subtle threats wrapped in language of forgiveness and family healing. I forgive you for turning my family against me, one letter read. I'm willing to move past the lies you've spread if you'll just let me be part of the twins' lives. They need their aunt. Don't make me prove how much. We gave every letter to our lawyer and the police. The detective handling her case told us they were building a strong harassment case on top of the existing charges. Catherine reached out again, this time with more information. Sarah's been texting me from different numbers, she said, offering me money to get information about your prescriptions. I've blocked every number, but they keep coming. She forwarded us the screenshots. Sarah was offering increasingly large amounts, money we knew she didn't have since her husband had frozen their joint accounts during the divorce. The divorce proceedings were moving quickly. Sarah's husband had been granted full custody, and Sarah was only allowed supervised visitation at a court-appointed facility. According to him, she'd shown up to exactly one visit, spent the entire time telling the children how everyone was lying about her, and hadn't returned since. The kids are in therapy, he told us during a coffee meeting. Faye especially. She feels guilty for telling you about the lies. I keep explaining she did the right thing. We assured him we'd be happy to talk to Faye anytime she needed reassurance. The poor girl had been carrying the weight of her mother's manipulation for years. 2 months after the adoption, Sarah made her biggest mistake yet. She managed to get hired at a daycare center in the next town over, using her maiden name and somehow passing the background check before her charges were fully processed. We only found out because another mother recognized her from the mommy blog drama and alerted the daycare management. They fired her immediately and reported the incident to Child Protective Services. This violation of working with children while under investigation for child endangerment added another charge to her growing list. Her lawyer dropped her as a client, citing irreconcilable differences in legal strategy. Sarah represented herself at the next hearing. She showed up in an ill-fitting suit, her hair unwashed, dark circles under her eyes. She rambled for 20 minutes about conspiracy theories and family betrayal before the judge cut her off. Ms. Sarah, the judge said sternly, you need proper legal representation. I'm appointing you a public defender. I don't need help, Sarah insisted. I just need people to listen to the truth. The truth according to whom? The judge asked. According to me, I'm the victim here. The judge scheduled another hearing and ordered Sarah to undergo a psychiatric evaluation. She stormed out of the courtroom, shouting about injustice. In the parking lot, she confronted us again. This time, my husband and I were ready. We both had our phones recording as she approached. Enjoy them while you can, she hissed, gesturing toward the twins in their car seats. You think you've won, but I know things. I know which formula you buy, which diapers you use, where you take them for walks. Sarah, you're being recorded, my husband said calmly, and you're violating the restraining order. She laughed, a sound devoid of sanity. Restraining order? You mean that joke of a paper? I've violated it a dozen times. Following you is easy when you're so predictable. Thank you for the confession, I said, ending the recording. Her face went white as she realized what she'd done. She turned and ran to her car, but court security was already approaching. They detained her until police arrived. This time, bail was revoked. Sarah would await trial from jail. The judge cited her confession of multiple restraining order violations and the escalating pattern of behavior as reasons for holding her. Her husband brought the kids to visit us the week after Sarah's incarceration. It was the first time they'd seen the twins in person. Faye was gentle and sweet with them, while James and the other children were curious but careful. Mom's in jail? Little James asked his father. Yes, buddy. She made some bad choices. Is it our fault? Charlotte asked, her 7-year-old face creased with worry. No, sweetheart. Nothing Mom did is your fault. She's sick in her mind and needs help. The kids seemed to accept this explanation. They played with the twins' toys and helped feed them bottles. It was a glimpse of what family gatherings could have been like if Sarah hadn't poisoned everything with her jealousy. My mother-in-law came by later that week. She'd aged years in the past months, the stress of Sarah's actions weighing heavily on her. I failed her somehow, she said, watching the twins sleep. I must have. Normal people don't do what she did. Mental illness doesn't mean you failed as a parent, my husband told her gently. Sarah made choices. Bad ones. That's on her, not you. We spent the afternoon looking through old photo albums, pictures of Sarah as a child, smiling and seemingly normal. My mother-in-law pointed out moments she now recognized as warning signs. Sarah's rage when she didn't win a game, her manipulation of younger cousins, the mysterious illness of a classmate who'd struck her for class president. I always made excuses, my mother-in-law admitted, said she was competitive, driven. I never wanted to see what was really there. The criminal trial was set for 6 months out. Sarah's public defender was trying to build an insanity defense, but the prosecutor felt confident. The evidence was overwhelming, from Catherine's testimony to the journal entries to Sarah's own recorded confessions. We settled into a new routine: park visits without looking over our shoulders, doctor appointments without fear of tampering, family dinners where Sarah's name rarely came up. The twins grew bigger every day, their personalities emerging. Charlotte was the serious one, studying everything with intense focus. James was all smiles and giggles, charming everyone he met. They were perfect, and they were ours, and Sarah couldn't touch them from behind bars. The daycare center where Sarah had briefly worked sent us a letter. They were implementing new background check procedures because of what happened. They also offered us free childcare if we ever needed it, their way of apologizing for the security lapse. We declined politely. The twins would stay with family or trusted friends when needed. Trust was earned slowly these days. Catherine sent a final text. I'm moving. New job, new state. I need to start over where no one knows what I did. I'm sorry again. Take care of those babies. I didn't respond. Some bridges, once burned, couldn't be rebuilt. 5 months into Sarah's incarceration, we got unexpected news. She was pregnant. Apparently, she'd been seeing someone before her arrest, and now faced giving birth in prison. Her husband was devastated. Those kids don't deserve another sibling born into this mess, he said. And who knows what she took while pregnant. She wasn't stable. The pregnancy added another layer of complexity to the trial. Her lawyer pushed harder for the insanity defense, arguing no sane woman would commit crimes while pregnant. The prosecutor countered that Sarah's calculated actions showed clear premeditation, not insanity. We attended every pre-trial hearing, sitting quietly in the back, bearing witness. Sarah grew larger and more disheveled with each appearance. She'd stare at us with naked hatred, her hands cuffed over her expanding belly. During one hearing, she exploded. They stole my life, she screamed, pointing at us. My babies, my family, everything. And now they sit there judging me. The judge ordered her removed from the courtroom. As guards escorted her out, she turned back one more time. Charlotte and James were supposed to be mine. The courtroom was silent after her outburst. Even her lawyer looked defeated. A month before trial, Sarah went into labor. The baby, a girl, was born healthy despite everyone's fears. Sarah named her Emma. My hands shook when I heard. Even now, even after everything, she was trying to hurt me, using my name for her child conceived in chaos and born in custody. Child Services took baby Emma immediately. Sarah had no rights to her, given her current situation and charges. The baby went to foster care while the state decided on permanent placement. Sarah's husband considered taking her but ultimately decided against it. My kids have been through enough, he explained. I can't bring home their half-sister as a constant reminder of their mother's breakdown. The trial began on a cold February morning. Charlotte and James were 11 months old, walking and babbling their first words. We left them with my father-in-law and took our seats in the courtroom. Sarah entered in shackles, her postpartum body shrouded in an orange jumpsuit. She'd lost weight since giving birth, her face gaunt and hollow. She found us immediately in the gallery, her stare unwavering. Catherine testified first, detailing how Sarah had blackmailed her into switching my vitamins. She broke down crying during cross-examination, but stuck to her story. The pharmacy had already revoked her license. This testimony was part of her plea deal. Sarah's husband went next, presenting the journal and describing years of manipulative behavior he'd been blind to. He shared stories of Sarah's escalating cruelty toward family members, her obsession with control, her inability to accept any perceived slight. When it was my turn to testify, I spoke clearly and calmly about the stolen names, the poisoned vitamins, the systematic destruction of my life. I showed photos of the twins, healthy and thriving despite Sarah's attempts to prevent their existence. She wanted me to suffer, I said, meeting Sarah's gaze, because I had something she couldn't control, her brother's love and loyalty. Sarah's lawyer tried to paint me as vindictive, suggesting I'd orchestrated everything to steal Sarah's life. But the evidence spoke louder than his theories. The prosecution presented everything: the emails, the fake social media accounts, the doctored medical records, the harassment campaign. They played recordings of Sarah's threats and confessions. They showed the jury the unmarked pills she'd brought to her children's house. Sarah testified on her own behalf against her lawyer's advice. She rambled about conspiracies and betrayal, claiming I'd been planning to destroy her from the day I met her brother. She insisted the vitamins were meant to help me, that the names were coincidences, that everyone was lying. I'm a good mother, she insisted, tears streaming down her face. They took my babies away because they're jealous of what I had. The prosecutor's cross-examination was brutal. He walked her through each piece of evidence, forcing her to confront her own words and actions. Sarah's story changed with each question, contradictions piling up. Finally, he asked, "Did you or did you not tamper with Emma's prenatal vitamins?" Sarah was silent for a long moment. Then quietly, "She didn't deserve to be a mother." The courtroom erupted. The judge called for order while Sarah's lawyer put his head in his hands. She she'd just confessed on the stand. Closing arguments were brief. The evidence was overwhelming, the confession damning. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours, guilty on all counts. Sarah showed no emotion as the verdict was read. She stared straight ahead, her face blank. The judge scheduled sentencing for the following month. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited. We pushed past them without comment. There was nothing to say. Justice had been served, but it brought no joy. A family was shattered, children motherless, a baby girl named Emma growing up in foster care. The sentencing hearing was quieter. Sarah appeared medicated, her movements slow and deliberate. Character witnesses spoke on both sides. Her children didn't attend. The judge sentenced her to 15 years with possibility of parole in 7. She'd serve her time in a facility with a mental health program. It was more lenient than the prosecutor wanted, but harsher than her lawyer hoped. As guards led her away, Sarah turned one last time. "Take care of my Emma," she said softly. I didn't know if she meant me or the baby, maybe both, maybe neither. We drove home to our twins, who greeted us with smiles and outstretched arms. Charlotte had learned to say mama while we were gone. James demonstrated his new ability to stack blocks. That night, after the twins were asleep, my husband and I sat on our porch. The stars were bright, the air crisp. We didn't talk about the trial or Sarah or the years of pain. We just sat together, breathing in peace. 2 weeks later, we got a call from Child Services. Sarah's baby Emma needed a permanent placement. Would we consider adopting her? My husband and I looked at each other, then at our twins playing on the floor. Charlotte was trying to feed James a toy car while he giggled. They were so happy, so innocent. "We'll think about it," I told the social worker. That night, we talked for hours. Could we raise Sarah's child? Could we look at her every day and not see her mother? Could we deny an innocent baby a loving home because of who gave birth to her? In the end, love won. Baby Emma joined our family 3 months later. We kept her first name but gave her a new middle name, Hope. Sarah's children visited often. They adored all 3 babies, especially Faye, who took her role as eldest cousin seriously. Their father started dating a kind woman who treated the kids well. Healing was slow but happening. My mother-in-law found peace in being a grandmother. She doted on all the children equally, making up for lost time. She never mentioned Sarah unless asked, and even then only briefly. "She's getting help," was all she'd say. That's what matters now. I returned to work when the twins turned 2. My boss welcomed me back with a promotion, acknowledging how professionally I'd handled an impossible situation. My coworkers threw a small party, complete with baby photos on my desk. Life settled into a new normal. 3 children under 3 was chaos, but beautiful chaos. Emma grew to look nothing like her biological mother, all bright smiles and gentle nature. The twins accepted her as their sister without question. We told them the truth in age-appropriate ways as they grew, about families being complicated, about mental illness, about choosing love over hate, about how sometimes people who should love you can't, but that doesn't mean you're unlovable. Catherine wrote once, a long letter of apology and updates on her new life. She was in therapy, working at a hospital, trying to make amends for her choices. I wrote back once, wishing her well. Some forgiveness takes time. Sarah's husband remarried when his youngest turned 10. The wedding was small but joyful. All 4 kids were in the wedding party, beaming with happiness. They'd found stability again. We received occasional updates about Sarah from her lawyer. She was taking her medication, attending therapy, working in the prison library. She'd found religion, then lost it, then found it again. She wrote letters to her children that her ex-husband saved unopened, waiting for them to decide if they wanted to read them someday. She never wrote to us. We were grateful for that. On the twins' 5th birthday, we threw a big party. All the cousins came, along with school friends and neighbors. Faye, now a teenager, helped organize games. Sarah's other children sang happy birthday with genuine joy. Baby Emma, now 3, tried to blow out her siblings' candles. Charlotte stopped her gently while James laughed. They were so patient with their little sister, protective and loving. My husband's grandmother, now 95, sat in her wheelchair beaming. She'd lived to see her family heal from the fractures Sarah had caused. She held baby Emma on her lap, whispering stories about the family's history, the good parts. That night, after cake and presents and too much excitement, we tucked 3 exhausted children into bed. Charlotte insisted on one more story. James wanted extra cuddles, and Emma needed her special blanket arranged just right. As I closed Emma's door, I thought about Sarah in her cell. Did she think about the children she'd lost through her own actions? Did she regret the path she'd chosen? Did she ever accept responsibility? I'd never know, and that was okay. Her journey was hers alone now. My husband found me in the hallway, pulling me into a hug. We'd survived the impossible and built something beautiful from the ashes. Our children were happy, healthy, loved. That was what mattered. The next morning brought the usual chaos. Spilled cereal, lost shoes, arguments over toys, normal family life. Charlotte helped Emma find her favorite dress while James fed the dog breakfast. They were good kids, kind kids, despite or perhaps because of their origin story. My phone buzzed with a text from Faye. "Can I babysit this weekend? I want to practice for when I have kids someday." I smiled, typing back yes. The cycle of family continued, healthier now, built on truth and choice rather than manipulation and pain. Sarah had tried to destroy us with her jealousy and cruelty. Instead, she'd created a larger, stronger family united by love and resilience. Her biological children thrived without her poison. Her baby grew surrounded by the love she'd tried to deny others. And us? We had everything she'd wanted, not because we'd stolen it, but because we'd earned it through patience, perseverance, and the choice to love even when it hurt. The twins started kindergarten that fall. Charlotte organized her supplies with military precision, while James charmed his teacher within minutes. Emma watched them leave with tears, counting the days until she could join them. We stood at the bus stop, 3 parents waving goodbye. My husband squeezed my hand as the bus pulled away. We'd made it. Despite everything, we'd made it. That afternoon, while Emma napped, I finally opened the box box I'd kept in our closet. Inside were the ultrasound photos of our lost babies, the ones whose names Sarah had stolen. I looked at each one, remembering the hope and heartbreak they represented. Then I added new photos: Charlotte, James, and Emma playing together. Life from loss, joy from sorrow, family from the ashes of another's destruction. I closed the box and put it away. The past was honored but not dwelt upon. The present demanded too much attention, too much love, too much life to waste time on what might have been. Downstairs, Emma was awake, calling for snacks. I headed down to meet her, ready for whatever came next. We'd survived Sarah's worst. Everything else was just life. Messy, beautiful, ordinary life. And that was more than enough.
আমি অ্যাজ এ ক্লিনিক্যাল ডায়েটিশিয়ান আমার কাছে মনে হচ্ছে 10 on 10.
And it meets the sweet tooth. This will be just perfect.
থ্যাংক ইউ।
চলে আসুন নারায়ণগঞ্জের নিশাত।
আমি আজকে করেছি হানি নাটস ডেটস সুইট বাইট। খুবই ভালো, স্বাস্থ্যের জন্য ভালো, এবং এটা যারা ডায়েট করে স্পেশালি যাদের যখন তখনই ক্ষুধা লাগলে এই রেসিপিটা মানে এই ডেট নাটসের যে মিক্স করেছেন আপনি এই খাবারটা খেতে পারেন। আমি প্রেজেন্টেশনের দিক থেকে বলবো যে আপনার যেটাই বানিয়েছেন সাইজগুলো একরকম না, প্রেজেন্টেশনটা আরেকটু সুন্দর হওয়া উচিত ছিল।
মিডনাইট ক্রেভিংসও মিষ্টি জাতীয় খাবার ডেজার্টের দিকেই যায়, অ্যান্ড সবসময় একটা গিলটি ফিলিং কাজ করে যে লেট নাইটে মিষ্টি খাচ্ছি, কেক খাচ্ছি, রাইট? সো তখন যদি আমি এরকম কিছু একটা পাই উইচ ইজ কমপ্লিটলি হেলথি and it meets the sweet tooth, this will be just perfect.
থ্যাংক ইউ।
ভালো ছিল। আপনার কস্টিং আজকে ঠিক আছে। ক্যালোরি চার্ট যেটা দিয়েছেন, রাইট, ওখানে আপনার হিসাবে আসতেছে ফর দ্য হোল থিং 2200 ক্যালোরি। আমাদের হিসাবে আসতেছে এটা অ্যাবাউট 2500 ক্যালোরি, রাইট? সো 2500 ক্যালোরি যদি আমি 4 দিয়ে ডিভাইড করি তাহলে এটা 620 ক্যালোরি করে এক একজনের জন্য আসতেছে, উইচ ইজ স্লাইটলি হায়ার। আমরা আপনাকে 600 লিমিট পর্যন্ত দিয়েছিলাম, আপনি 20 দিয়ে বেশি যাচ্ছেন, স্লাইটলি হায়ার। থ্যাংক ইউ।
আমার কাছে ভালো লেগেছে ডেজার্টটা। মিডনাইট ক্রেভিং থাকলে একটা হেলদি ডেজার্ট আমরা খেতে পারি, যেটা সত্যি খুব ভালো। গুড ট্রাই, থ্যাংক ইউ।
জাজেস অলরেডি কিন্তু চমৎকার প্রশংসা করেছে আপনার। আমি অ্যাজ এ ক্লিনিক্যাল ডায়েটিশিয়ান আমার কাছে মনে হচ্ছে 10 on 10। মানে যদি ইনগ্রেডিয়েন্টের কথা চিন্তা করি প্রত্যেকটা ইনগ্রেডিয়েন্ট খুবই হেলদি, স্পেশালি যে সিডস ইউজ করা হয়েছে। শুধুমাত্র আমার কাছে মনে হচ্ছে যদি পোর্শন সাইজটা যদি আরেকটু ছোট হয় তাহলে মিডনাইট ফুডস হিসেবে একেবারে পারফেক্ট। থ্যাংক ইউ।
থ্যাংক ইউ ম্যাম। থ্যাংক ইউ নিশাত, আপনার ফুড দিয়ে যাবেন।
যে 10 মিনিট আমি বসেছিলাম তখন আমি ভেবেছি যে কিভাবে আমাকে শর্ট ওয়েতে করতে হবে। আমি যেহেতু এর আগে 10 মিনিট ক্যালোরি হিসাব করার একটা সময় পেয়েছি, তখন জাস্ট আমি আমার ক্যালোরিটা আমি আবার হাতে গুনে দেখলাম যে আমার ক্যালোরিটা ঠিক আছে কিনা। আমি এটা 4 পোর্শনে ভাগ করেছি যে পার পোর্শন কত ক্যালোরি পড়বে, ওইটা আমি একটু ঠিক করে নিলাম যে ওটা আমার ঠিক আছে কিনা। যে যখন আমি দেখলাম ঠিক আছে তখন আমি চিন্তা করলাম যে ঠিক আছে আমি ডেজার্টেই যাব। তো এই কাজটাই তখন আমি করেছি, অন্য কোনো চিন্তাভাবনা আমি করি নাই। কারণ তখন আমার ও যে 10 মিনিট কমিয়ে দিয়েছে ওইটা বাদ দিয়ে আমার 50 মিনিটে কাজ করতে হবে। আমি জাস্ট আমার মাথায় এটাই রেখেছি।
জয়পুরহাটের কুমু, রাজশাহীর লীনা এবং চট্টগ্রামের উর্মি মাহবুব। এই তিনজনের মধ্য থেকে দুজন আজ বাড়ি ফিরে যাবেন আপনারা। আজকের পর্বের স্কোরগুলো দেখতে চাই। এবার তাহলে আজকের পর্বের কে টপার হয়েছে সেটা জেনে নেই। লেটস হ্যাভ এ লুক। ওয়াও, সাফায়াত 30 আউট অফ 30, কংগ্রাচুলেশনস। এবং আমি ভুল না করলে মহামঞ্চে বোধহয় এটাই প্রথম হলো এবার এই সিজন 8-এ যে 30 আউট অফ 30। সাফায়াত, বিগ কংগ্রাচুলেশনস, আপনি আসলেই বোম্বাই মরিচ। বিজ্ঞ বিচারক, ওই যে শেষ ভালো যার সব ভালো তার একটা কথা রয়েছে। আমাদের টপ 10 নিয়ে যখন যাত্রা শুরু করলাম, তাদের প্রথম যে চ্যালেঞ্জটি ছিল সেই চ্যালেঞ্জেও কিন্তু সাফায়েত টপার হয়েছিল, এবং আজকে শেষ চ্যালেঞ্জ বাক্স রহস্য, সেটাতেও সাফায়েত টপার হয়েছে। সো আমার মনে হয় আমরা সাফায়েতের স্কোর দিয়ে শুরু করি। 4টি পর্ব মিলিয়ে টোটাল স্কোর কত দাঁড়ালো সাফায়েতে সেটা এই মুহূর্তে দেখে নেব। লেটস হ্যাভ এ লুক। ওয়াও, 111.6 আউট অফ 120। কংগ্রাচুলেশন সাফায়েত।
থ্যাংক ইউ সো মাচ।
এরপর দেখে নেব তামান্নার স্কোর। 4টি পর্ব মিলিয়ে টোটাল স্কোর কত দাঁড়ালো? 102.6 আউট অফ 120। কংগ্রাচুলেশন তামান্না। এরপর নওশিন, স্ক্রিনে চোখ রাখি। 101 আউট অফ 120। কংগ্রাচুলেশন নওশিন। এবারে দিবা, স্ক্রিনে চোখ রাখি। 100 আউট অফ 120। কংগ্রাচুলেশন। এবারে মৌসুমী কবির, স্ক্রিনে চোখ রাখি, দেখবো আপনার 4টি পর্ব মিলিয়ে টোটাল স্কোর কত দাঁড়ালো। লেটস হ্যাভ এ লুক। 93.8 আউট অফ 120। এবারে জুয়াইরিয়া, চোখ রাখবো স্ক্রিনে। 91.2 আউট অফ 120। এবারে নিশাত, দেখে নেব 4টি পর্ব মিলিয়ে আপনার টোটাল স্কোর কত হলো। লেটস হ্যাভ এ লুক। 91 আউট অফ 120। আমরা একে একে আমাদের 7 জন পার্টিসিপেন্টসের স্কোর দেখেছি। বাকি আছেন 3 জন পার্টিসিপেন্টস, জয়পুরহাটের কুমু, রাজশাহীর লীনা এবং চট্টগ্রামের উর্মি মাহবুব। এই 3 জনের মধ্য থেকে দুজন আজ বাড়ি ফিরে যাবেন আপনারা।
আমি নিশাতপুর থেকে 10 মিনিট মাইনাস করে দিতে চাচ্ছি।
মানে আমার সময় কমিয়ে দিয়ে আবার হচ্ছে আমাকে কি বলবো একটা পাম দেওয়ার বিষয় যেটা বলে ও আমাকে ওইটা দিচ্ছে, তো আমার খুব হাসিও পাচ্ছিল, আবার হচ্ছে ওর উপরে রাগও হচ্ছিল।
ব্ল্যাক স্কার্ফের পাওয়ার আজকে সাফায়েত আপনার জন্য 3টে অপশন থাকবে। নাম্বার 1, আপনি যদি চান তাহলে আপনি কুকিং টাইমের ভিতরে যে কোনো সময় আবার মেন্টার্স টাইম আউট 2 মিনিটের জন্য নিতে পারবেন। অপশন 2, টপ 8-এর আজকে যারা পার্টিসিপেট করছে তাদের কুকিং টাইম থেকে, যেটা আমরা এখনও জানি না, হোয়াট এভার দ্য কুকিং টাইম ইজ, সেখান থেকে আপনি যে কোনো একজন পার্টিসিপেন্টের 10 মিনিটস মাইনাস করে দিতে পারবেন। অ্যান্ড অপশন 3, আপনি রাধুনী গ্রোসারি স্টোরে আনলিমিটেড টাইমের জন্য যেতে পারবেন। চিন্তা করবেন, চিন্তা করে আমাকে জানাবেন।
অপশন 2 সিলেক্ট করতে চাই।
আপনি একজনের থেকে 10 মিনিটস মাইনাস করে দিবেন। কার থেকে সেটা?
আমি নিশাতপুর থেকে 10 মিনিট মাইনাস করে দিতে চাচ্ছি।
আমার আপুকে চ্যালেঞ্জ ছেড়ে দেওয়ার মূল উদ্দেশ্য এবং মূল রিজন ছিল আপুকে একটু হচ্ছে অগ্নিস্ফুলিঙ্গ দিয়ে দেওয়া। আপু হচ্ছে একটা কয়লার মতো, শুকনা কয়লা, কিন্তু আগুন পাইতেছে না। আমি একটু আগুন দিয়ে দিয়েছি, আপু জ্বলে উঠবে ইনশাল্লাহ।
মানে আমার কাছে বিষয়টা ইন্টারেস্টিং লাগছে, মানে আমার সময় কমিয়ে দিয়ে আবার হচ্ছে আমাকে কি বলবো একটা পাম দেওয়ার বিষয় যেটা বলে ও আমাকে ওইটা দিচ্ছে, তো আমার খুব হাসিও পাচ্ছিল, আবার হচ্ছে ওর উপরে রাগও হচ্ছিল।
সাফায়েত, গুড ডিসিশন। আপনার ব্ল্যাক স্কার্ফটা আমাকে দিয়ে যাবেন।
সাফায়াত চ্যালেঞ্জ ছুড়ে দিলেন নিশাতের কাছে। বেস্ট অফ লাক। আমার ধারণা আপনি খুব ভালো করবেন আজকে এবং একেবারে ফাটিয়ে দেবেন। এবারে সময় হলো সময় জানার।
রাধুনী স্টোর এবং কুকিং টাইম, কস্টিং, কিচেন ক্লিনিং এই সব কিছু সহ আপনারা টোটাল সময় পাচ্ছেন শুধুমাত্র 1 ঘন্টা। বুঝতে পারছেন? কোনো আলাদা আলাদা টাইম নেই।
ও মাই গড, মানে ইটস টু টাফ। কিন্তু ক্যালোরি ক্যালকুলেশনের জন্য তো একটা আলাদা সময় দরকার। আমাদের গেস্ট জাজ, আপনি কিছু বলুন।
কন্টেস্টেন্ট যারা রয়েছেন তাদের উদ্দেশ্যে বলছি যে আপনারা ক্যালোরি কাউন্ট করবেন, সেটা কিন্তু আপনারা টাইমটা পাবেন হচ্ছে মেন্টরদের সাথে আপনার টাইম আউটে 10 মিনিট পরে।
আপনারা আজকে মেন্টার্স টাইম আউটের পরে অ্যাডিশনাল 10 মিনিটস পাবেন ক্যালোরি ক্যালকুলেট করার জন্য। ক্যালোরি ক্যালকুলেশনের পরে 1 আওয়ার ফর গ্রোসারি টাইম অ্যান্ড কুকিং। ক্লিয়ার?
ক্লিয়ার। থ্যাংক ইউ শেফ। বিজ্ঞ বিচারকদের অনুরোধ করব তাদের আসনে গিয়ে বসার জন্য।
টোটাল কত টাকা খরচ হয়েছে আজকে?
আমি 3926 টাকা।
মালাই কাবাব, এটা মালাইয়ের মতন কাবাবটা মুখে মেল্ট হয়ে যাচ্ছে। 10 on 10 লাগছে।
থ্যাংক ইউ ম্যাম, থ্যাংক ইউ।
তামান্না, দ্রুত চলে আসুন।
আসসালামু আলাইকুম।
ওয়ালাইকুম আসসালাম।
আজকে বানিয়েছি ইলিশ পোলাও, চিকেন শিক কাবাব করেছি, মালাইটা আমি সিজলিং করে দিয়েছি।
আপনাকে আজকে 5,000 টাকার বাজেট দেওয়া হয়েছিল। টোটাল কত টাকা খরচ হয়েছে আজকে?
আমি 3926 টাকা।
আজকে চ্যালেঞ্জে টাকা সেভ করাটা কিন্তু কোনো ক্রেডিট
জি।
না, রাইট? আপনাকে 5,000 টাকা দেওয়া হয়েছিল, আপনি 5,000 টাকায় ম্যাক্সিমাম কি করতে পারবেন, দ্যাট ওয়াজ দ্য চ্যালেঞ্জ।
আমার কাছে আপনার আজকের কনসেপ্টটা কেন জানি মিল পাচ্ছি না,
আচ্ছা,
কিন্তু খেতে দুটোই দারুণ।
থ্যাংক ইউ।
দুটোরই স্বাদ আছে। ইলিশ পোলাওটাও খেতে মজা হয়েছে, তার চাইতে বেশি 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 মজা হয়েছে আপনার এই কাবাব, মালাই কাবাব। এটা মালাইয়ের মতন কাবাবটা মুখে মেল্ট হয়ে যাচ্ছে। 10 on 10 লাগছে।
থ্যাংক ইউ ম্যাম, থ্যাংক ইউ।
তামান্না,
জি ম্যাম।
আমি যখন ইলিশ পোলাওটা খেলাম ভালো হয়েছে, আমি খারাপ বলবো না, একরকম লেগেছে। আর মালাই কাবাব, কাবাব যেটা তুমি করেছো মালাই কাবাব, ওটা দুর্দান্ত, অনেক ভালো হয়েছে।
থ্যাংক ইউ।
কিন্তু এই দুটোর কম্বিনেশনে গিয়ে একটা গন্ডগোল হয়ে গেছে, এখানে একটু ব্যালেন্সের অভাব আছে। আদারওয়াইজ ফুড ওয়াজ ভেরি টেস্টি, ভেরি গুড। থ্যাংক ইউ।
তামান্না, আমি আপনার দুটো ডিশেই কোনো ফল্ট খুঁজে পাইনি। এটা মজা হয়েছে, অ্যান্ড মালাই কাবাবটা অসাধারণ,
থ্যাংক ইউ শেফ।
জাস্ট পারফেক্ট। দিস ইজ সাচ অ্যান অ্যামেজিং ডিশ,
থ্যাংক ইউ শেফ।
বিউটিফুল। আপনার কস্টিং ঠিক আছে, নিট অ্যান্ড পারফেক্ট।
থ্যাংক ইউ।
তামান্না, আপনার মেন্টর কে ছিল আজকে?
আজকে আমার মেন্টর ছিলেন নাতাশা।
নাতাশা আপু, আপনি স্পুন নিয়ে সেটা ট্রাই করবেন। This one. Super.
খুবই ভালো,
থ্যাংক ইউ।
কংগ্রাচুলেশন, অনেক ভালো হয়েছে। থ্যাংক ইউ স্যার, থ্যাংক ইউ।
থ্যাংক ইউ তামান্না অ্যান্ড কংগ্রাচুলেশনস।
থ্যাংক ইউ। রহস্যময় ব্রিফকেসটা একদম বাঘের মতো তাকায় আছে আমার দিকে।
কি আছে ব্রিফকেসে?
জানি না আসলে, খুবই কনফিউজিং।
হোয়াট এ ড্রামাটিক এন্ট্রি শেফ, কিন্তু হাতে ব্রিফকেস কেন?
শেফ যেভাবে ব্রিফকেস নিয়ে আমাদের স্টুডিওতে এন্ট্রি করলো, ওটা দেখে প্রথমে খুব ড্রামাটিক লাগছিল। সাধারণত আমরা সিনেমাতে দেখি যে কোনো কাউকে যদি কিডন্যাপ করা হয় তাহলে মাফিয়াদের কাছ থেকে অথবা গুন্ডাদের কাছ থেকে ছাড়িয়ে নেওয়ার জন্য এরকম ব্রিফকেস নিয়ে, টাকা ভর্তি ব্রিফকেস নিয়ে আসে।
যখন সে ব্রিফকেস নিয়ে এভাবে আমার মুড নিয়ে আসছিল, তখন আমার ব্রিফকেস দেখে মনে হচ্ছিল যে ব্রিফকেসের মধ্যে টাস্ককে ভরা একটা বন্দুক আছে, অ্যান্ড ওইটা দিয়ে আমাকে টাই করে শ্যুট করে দিবে।
হ্যালো মৌ,
হ্যালো।
এই ব্রিফকেসটাই আজকের চ্যালেঞ্জের ব্রিফ।
ওয়াও, স্ট্রেট ইনটু ইন দ্য বিজনেস, মানে সরাসরি ব্রিফ নিয়ে আজকে আপনি এন্ট্রি নিয়েছেন।
অ্যাবসলিউটলি। আপনি দেখতে চান ব্রিফকেসের ভিতরে কি আছে?
ডেফিনেটলি। আমার তো এখনই আগ্রহ হচ্ছে যে আজকে কি চ্যালেঞ্জ লুকিয়ে রয়েছে ব্রিফকেসের মাঝে।
তার আগে আমি একটু পার্টিসিপেন্টসরা কি গেস করছে সেটা জানতে চাই। নিশাদ, কি আছে ব্রিফকেসে?
শেফ, আপনি যেহেতু নিয়ে আসছেন, হতে পারে ভিতরে কিচেন কিটও থাকতে পারে।
শফায়েত, গেস মাস্টার।
আজকে মানে বুঝতে পারতেছি না আসলে কি হবে। ব্রিফকেসের ভিতরেই আমাদের খেলার এরিয়া আছে, খেলতে হবে ব্রিফকেসের ভিতরে জিনিস দিই।
কুমু, আচ্ছা আজকে আপনি গেস করেন তো।
জানি না আসলে, খুবই কনফিউজিং। মানে যেটা আমরা গেস করি সেটা হয় না, অন্য কিছুই হয়। তো বুঝতে পারছি না কি আছে।
আমাদের আজকের ব্ল্যাক স্কার্ফ হোল্ডার তামান্না, আপনি গেস করেন।
মনে হচ্ছে যে রহস্যময় ব্রিফকেসটা একদম বাঘের মতো তাকায় আছে আমার দিকে। খুবই দম বন্ধ হয়ে যাচ্ছে, জানি না কি বের হবে এটা থেকে, খুবই কনফিউজড।
আমি পার্টিসিপেন্টসদের সঙ্গে একেবারেই একমত, ব্রিফকেসে কি রয়েছে আমিও গেস করতে পারছি না। তবে দর্শক এবং পার্টিসিপেন্টস সবার উদ্দেশ্যে বলতে চাই, আজকে মহামঞ্চের 12তম চ্যালেঞ্জ, এবং এই 12তম চ্যালেঞ্জ কারো জন্য বয়ে আনবে সুসময়, আর কারো ঘড়িতে
এই 12তম চ্যালেঞ্জে 12টাও বেজে যেতে পারে। আসলে মজা করছি। আপনাদের সবার সামনে আসছে সুসময়, আর সুসময় এই প্রত্যাশাই আমি করছি।